Story 1. I worked in insurance for 7 years, and near the end, I was so depressed that I had no will to do anything. I saw people stiffed on home policies and witness claims denied on deaths. I handled death claims during hurricanes for families who died because they kept their generators indoors, which caused carbon monoxide poisoning. I heard people laughing about how stupid they thought the family was and then gleefully gloating that there was no payout. I worked there while an insurance agent had his secretary call other companies to move clients' retirement plans from outside plans to him, earning them less money but giving him a larger commission. When he was caught, the company demanded we remain silent. I informed every client I spoke to. I do not know how many other agents were like that. I found numerous questionable signatures and other unethical practices, and when I questioned them, I was reprimanded. One supervisor threatened all of us and intentionally wrote bad reviews to prevent us from leaving her department. When she was caught, she was merely moved to another position with the same pay. No punishment was given. Story 2. Telecommunications companies rolling back unlimited data and throttling speeds industry-wide was collusion to avoid investing in new infrastructure while guaranteeing unlimited data without restrictions. It has always been a game for them. In the past, it used to cost 2 cents to receive a text message and 4 cents to send one. The industry has been corrupt from the start and remains highly profitable. Story 3. Small-town police departments and city councils. Approximately 90% of the funds are embezzled. Story 4. Public school. The difficult thing about this is that you need school. You also need public school. People need affordable education. Many people corrupt these systems because they know that as a society, we cannot simply get rid of school. I am not talking about the teachers. I am talking about the administration. The type of people who join these administrations often lack a sense of power in their lives, might not succeed elsewhere, have personal grievances, and enforce policies that make no sense. They do not maintain order and only serve to frustrate people. For example, I cannot imagine any situation where it is not permitted to walk your child to school unless the person enforcing such a policy is someone who lacks authority in their life. It is not anyone's business whether someone has a car or chooses to walk their child to school. I cannot imagine any other reason to send a note home in a child's lunchbox because you included a few crackers as a side to their balanced meal, which contains protein, fiber, and vegetables, unless that individual is unnecessarily strict. I am happy to follow rules, and in fact, I like rules. I only take issue when those rules make no sense or unfairly affect people, and school administrations seem to enjoy that. Story 5. Organized religion, especially megastadium hypocritical prosperity churches. Looking at you, Joel Osteen and Kenneth Copeland. Story 6. United States healthcare. Causing financial ruin for people who need medical care is one of the greatest injustices. Story 7. Car dealerships and real estate agents are middlemen who add no value yet expect to be paid a percentage of the total product price. They do not contribute to the economy. They only extract income by gatekeeping transactions. Story 8. Politics involves creating rules that exempt those in power from violations that would apply to ordinary people, such as insider trading. Story 9. Religions and charities attract narcissists like no other. Narcissists love when people automatically think they are awesome just because of their title or the organization they belong to. Story 10. College sports, particularly college football, will only get worse due to name, image, and likeness rights and legalized gambling. Story 11. Private ambulance service companies in the United States, some of which are primary emergency medical services for major cities. Crews operate with minimal outdated equipment, low wages, predatory billing practices, long response times, and add unnecessary for-profit waste to an already expensive healthcare system. Story 12. After reading posts about the Longshoremen Union, I will say that one. Story 13. Oil. It is corruption so pervasive that it has caused multiple overthrows of democratic nations, genocides, and other atrocities across the world for nearly 100 years. And it is still doing so, often legally. Coca-Cola had death squads in South America, but oil far surpasses them. Story 14. Politics. Let's face it, career politicians have become an industry. Story 15. The death industry should not cost as much as it does to bury or cremate someone and hold a funeral or memorial service. They take advantage of grieving people by encouraging them to buy more expensive items that are not necessary. Story 16. Police in Australia have been proven corrupt repeatedly over a long period of time. Unfortunately, the church in Australia has a long history of pedophilia, followed by stonewalling and denial when exposed. Between the two, the church is worse. Story 17. Private equity and hedge funds exist to extract as much money as possible from companies and destroy them once they are done. Almost every product, business, and many services and utilities that have declined recently are directly due to private equity interference. Story 18. The military-industrial complex. All those defense contractors view war as an opportunity for profit. Some may have even influenced conflicts to boost their share prices. Story 19. I worked in politics both locally and nationally from 2002 to 2012, and I have never met a more crooked group in my 61 years. Story 20. It is anything that makes a few people rich at the expense of others. The entire existence of capitalism is fueled by corruption. Story 21. In my experience, real estate, my girlfriend and I do real estate on the side, and because most people buy a house only once, they do not notice patterns. However, I find most people in real estate to be the most disingenuous, backstabbing, and underhanded individuals. Legal professions when mixed with private wealth management. If anything on your LinkedIn profile suggests you may earn good money, these people approach you aggressively, offering to hide your money in some tax haven. More obvious examples include mega churches, local politicians, most national politicians outside of a few developed countries, harbor pilots, national and international sports leagues. Story 22. Investment banking involves highly competitive and aggressive practices. I had some experience in the industry and found it to be very predatory. Story 23. Longshoremen and dock workers. From the movie On the Waterfront released in 1954 to the current strike, I am looking forward to full automation of our ports. Americans will be amazed at how much cheaper goods and materials will become. Story 24. Real estate development. In cities where all development is denied, deals happen in back alleys. Smaller cities use developers to fund the lives of city council members. It is shocking that the Federal Bureau of Investigation does not arrest many city council members yearly. As a result, small cities can be impossible to develop in. Story 25. Lobbying influences nearly every industry and special interest. Story 26. The pharmaceutical industry is certain to generate the highest profits. Story 27. There are industries that would make even a villain from a superhero movie raise an eyebrow. But let's be real. How does the fast food industry always manage to get trends like healthy menu while still deep frying everything in sight? It is like watching a magician pull off the greatest illusion. Only instead of rabbits, they are pulling out heartburn. Story 28. The Brazilian government and evangelical churches are closely connected. Story 29. I am genuinely shocked that Nestle is not the absolute number one in this thread by a very large margin. Story 30. Modern higher education. The gatekeepers of knowledge charge students a high price for an education at a pace and structure that they deem acceptable. They enrich themselves with monetary gains obtained at the expense of their own students. It is a culture that breeds favoritism and elitism. Story 31. Health insurance. There is no way to run for-profit health insurance ethically. The incentives are misaligned. Insurance companies make the most money by not providing the service we pay them for. Story 32. The big banks create a financial instrument out of fairy dust. They sell it to unsuspecting individuals, take profit, watch it crash, and make money on the downside with other financial instruments crafted from misleading information. Story 33. Formula One is problematic due to Bernie Ecclestone's ability to upset nearly his entire fan base. Adding his close personal relationship with Vladimir Putin creates the foundation for a James Bond-level conspiracy. Story 34. Whatever the reason, we are still not actively addressing climate change. Story 35. Governments and the oil industry both harm people to benefit their interests, sometimes together. Story 36. The entire United States justice system is problematic if you encounter the wrong police officer, prosecutor, judge, or jury. An estimated 4 to 6% of imprisoned people are actually innocent, and this is a result of a broken justice system. Sometimes it is due to laziness or a jury wanting to go home. Other times it involves corrupt police officers, prosecutors, or judges. Story 37. United States government. Only if one looks at the massive military complex and its deep roots everywhere, would they know we are not going to see peace because of the United States, as it is simply unprofitable. Story 38. Pharmaceutical companies are responsible for 75% of all advertising spending on television networks. Television networks are therefore dependent on pharmaceutical companies because they cannot afford to lose 75% of their funding. Every time you see a drug commercial, recognize that it is paying for the news segment you just watched. Story 39. The waste management business. Everybody immediately assumes you are involved with organized crime. It is a stereotype and it is offensive. Reddit is the last place that should want to perpetuate it. There is no mafia. Story 40. Definitely, the pharmaceutical industry prioritizes profit over people's health. Story 41. Longshoremen Union. Do you hear the way the union leaders are talking? We are going to be respected once you people start hurting. That is a gang. That is literally the exact same thing as extortion. Story 42. The Central Intelligence Agency and the American and Western intelligence community in general. Knowing what they did in Asia, South America, and the Middle East is mind-blowing. It is shocking how these individuals remained free afterward. They are absolute ghouls. Story 43. Nobody is going to convince me that mattress stores are not a massive money laundering operation. Story 44. Almost every institution around you is deeply corrupt. Story 45. Wells Fargo. There are dozens of documentaries and news headlines about how they will steal your bank account, yet it is hard to get people to stop banking there. I begged my previous roommate to stop banking with them, and he got mad at me. People really cannot fathom that a criminal organization is running openly as a bank. Story 46. Insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies are definitely working together. Story 47. Since a company's primary goal is to increase profits, many corporations tend to become more detrimental as they grow. The corporation transforms into an entity that thrives on revenue. Are the employees within the company greedy or malicious? Possibly. Nestle is an example that fits this description. Story 48. The United States medical industry is designed to extract every possible cent from the most vulnerable people during the worst times of their lives. It is appalling. Story 49. Government. There are many reasons why. The best reflection of faith in government and society is the decision to have children. Most industrialized countries have birth rates below replacement levels. Story 50. The surveillance capitalism industry is essentially committing automatic psychological manipulation on billions of people. Story 51. Traffic engineers get away with dangerous and deadly road design. If you would not be comfortable with your 12-year-old daughter in that bike lane, you should never approve it. Story 52. Pharmaceutical benefits managers do not manufacture products or pay for anything. Their primary incentive is to inflate drug prices and make obtaining medications as complicated as possible. They are the part of the pharmaceutical system that is by far the most harmful. Story 53. The United States federal government is undeniably authoritative. Story 54. Probably the media and the banks control our money and influence what we see. Let us avoid engaging together in conspiracies. Story 55. Breitbart and other far-right outlets even teach how to be corrupt. They are so corrupt. Story 56. Food, groceries, water, or whatever you want to call it. They are literally trying to make you as addicted as possible and do not care about the health of their consumers. They want everyone to eat ultra-processed foods to never be satisfied and always crave more. This plays a huge part in the obesity and diabetes epidemic, as well as many other diet-related health problems in both first and third world countries. They simply do not care. Money is more important than human health or lives. Some of them even believe and openly say that hydration should not be a human right and would rather let people die with no access to clean drinking water than not make a profit. Most of humanity, meaning all of humanity across this entire globe, is controlled by a handful of organizations. They are the scum of the earth, deliberately making things worse just to line their pockets. Story 57. The pharmaceutical industry caused the modern opioid crisis and then laughed about it behind the scenes. Story 58. Redaction services. The number of changes and alterations made is unfathomable. Absolutely corrupt to its core. Story 59. Religion exploits basic human existential fear for profit, power, and control, appealing to profound superstition to dissuade rationality and critical thinking. Story 60. Medical experts will say whatever you want if you pay them. I know lawyers, whatever. It's all true. But doctors who are testifying are 4 times worse. There is no fact. It is all opinion, and they will cloud it with medical jargon to sound persuasive and truthful to the judge or jury. Source: medical malpractice attorney. Yes, I paid for the testimony. Story 61. Anything related to politics. I recently learned that here in America, billions of dollars are spent on defense and war materials. This means they have to buy many guns, missiles, and rockets. Who do they buy from? American munitions manufacturers. Who owns stocks in American munitions manufacturers? Most American politicians. They pass bills to spend taxpayer money to buy products from businesses they invest in, thereby lining their own pockets. Story 62. Big technology companies may not be the most corrupt, but they are certainly harmful. I am 90% sure that in 30 years we will discover that doomscrolling driven by fear and anger algorithms is harmful to the brain, similar to how smoking was found to cause heart disease and cancer. Scientists knew this in the 1950s, but the government did not officially announce it until 1989 due to financial interests. I would wager that no matter how many studies emerge about how harmful attention-seeking algorithms are to the brain, we may never fully understand the extent because information is controlled by the technology companies themselves. Do you think a scientific study showing that social media causes decreases in gray matter in the prefrontal cortex will appear on your news feed? This explains much about current politics and why, after a lifetime of conflict between Israel and Palestine, suddenly millions are discussing it. Meanwhile, Somalia remains one of the largest areas of human suffering on our planet. Yet it receives little attention, no protests, and no financial support. The reason is that you do not get to choose what appears in your algorithm, and if you cannot choose what you read, you are not free to choose what you think about. Do not think of a pink elephant, I just made you think of one, and I am only one person. Social media equals chains. Reddit used to be good, but now I use it mainly to inform people they are being misled and occasionally to help people enter recovery from substance abuse. Story 63. Insurance, pharmaceutical, and adoption. Money makes people do strange things. Story 64. This is a long list and I am uncertain how you quantify it. By most impact upon society? By the most money gained? Let's start with the obvious. Federal politicians. Since Citizens United was passed, the unethical financial influence is massive and absolutely unacceptable, unless, of course, you are a lobbyist or corporate chief executive officer. These individuals win in the form of impact on society and money. Next, National Collegiate Athletic Association football and the various bowl committees. This is absolutely a scam, but then so is name, image, and likeness. Large metropolitan politicians and police forces. Rampant pay-to-play and backroom deals are all too common in practically all large metropolitan governments. Probably local governments as well. Mega churches and any church that insists upon politicizing its influence. What a con. All around. If they are going to promote political candidates or political opinions, they need to pay taxes. Period. Last, but by no means least, the United States Supreme Court. These individuals have become almost completely corrupted and engage in pay-to-play. The highest court in the land should have the highest degree of accountability. These individuals think they are above that. Story 65. Law enforcement officers are pressured by local, state, and federal governments to make arrests and issue citations. so they find any way to apprehend people. Story 66. The technology industry, particularly regarding data privacy and monopolistic practices. Large technology companies collect vast amounts of personal data without proper consent or transparency, leading to privacy violations. Story 67. Politicians and journalists probably have some of the highest levels of corruption. Story 68. Health insurance companies are making decisions using untested artificial intelligence that they are unable to overrule. The artificial intelligence is declining many claims. Story 69. Wall Street. They have paid off lawmakers, so the fines they pay for crimes are less than the profit they made from the crimes. Story 70. I am currently an insurance agent and have been for around 3 years. There is often dishonesty and having to pretend the client is not making sense, when in fact they do. One of our clients was just involved in a head-on collision. My boss called to ask if there was a police report and to get a description of the accident. Our client stated he was on the way to the hospital and was unsure. My boss told our 2-story office that he was not worried about this client's claim because the client only receives a $20 discount on his policy. Only my boss makes a commission. I do not. He does not care if the client is okay. Meanwhile, a well-known doctor in the area, who is also one of our clients, had a minor accident. Our boss was very attentive and helped him extensively. This contrasts with the unnecessary items people sometimes add to their claims. Story 71. Pharmaceutical companies, large food corporations, and government institutions in general. We send billions overseas for wars that we have no real business being involved in. Pharmaceutical companies put us on lifelong medication instead of encouraging healthy living. Large food corporations produce products that are unhealthy but cheap to manufacture and addictive. Story 72. I worked in insurance and it was quite corrupt. They fired me for unjust reasons, which I later discovered was because I questioned one of their decisions and provided an alternative solution. When I worked there, 95% of their customers were public entities across the United States, and the insurance company had to show their financials with proposals to these entities to demonstrate financial stability. The insurance company had about 30 different companies under its umbrella and selectively chose which financials to send to clients to present a favorable view. A close friend of mine, who was a banker, mentioned that the insurance company had applied for a loan. I told him that the insurance company was not showing their real financials and was deceiving the company. Later, he thanked me for the warning after they obtained the true financials and rejected the loan application. Now, insurance rates are extremely high, and with all the inflation, this industry is rarely discussed concerning price gouging, even though they are likely the exact industry that exploits the public while complaining about financial hardship. Story 73. The United States government, with the Powell Memorandum, a call to action for corporate America, the Citizens United decision, and the Chevron ruling, to name a few, has experienced corruption across all 3 branches. Story 74. Since starting the show The Resident, I have to say the medical industry. I know it is just a show, but I do not think it is too far off from the truth. Story 75. Any health insurance company. Choose one. Their job is to make money, not to help people. Story 76. The organization of the petroleum exporting countries comes to mind because it is a cartel, and cartels and corruption go hand in hand. Story 77. The higher you move up in any industry and the more money involved, the more corrupt it becomes. Story 78. The Republican Party in the United States supports and promotes corrupt candidates for political office. Every Republican president, including Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan, has had many staff members indicted and convicted for crimes committed in office. Now, the party is openly supporting one of the most corrupt individuals imaginable as their presidential candidate. Story 79. The United States Supreme Court is probably the most corrupt organization in my lifetime. There should be term limits on each Supreme Court judge. Story 80. I think the pharmaceutical industry is probably one of the most corrupt because it has the greatest impact. It seems like money is more important than human life. Story 81. Government. Large companies can write the legislation and regulations and pay the politicians to vote in their favor. Story 82. Mini cheddars are the worst and most corrupt industry ever. Once upon a time, in the whimsical world of snack foods, there was a company called Mini Cheddars. This company was run by a group of mischievous mice who had a knack for cheese and a penchant for mischief. Rumor had it that the chief executive officer, Mr. Cheddar Whiskers, had a secret cheese vault where he stashed the finest cheddar from around the world. Employees often whispered about the great cheese heist, where Mr. Whiskers allegedly swapped out premium cheese for subpar cheddar to cut costs, all while enjoying the finest cheese himself. The board meetings were said to be chaotic, with Mr. Whiskers bribing board members with cheese platters to approve his dubious plans. The real scandal broke when it was discovered that Mini Cheddars had been using cheese-flavored air in their snacks. Instead of real cheese, they were infusing their snacks with the essence of cheese, captured from the dreams of sleeping cows. This revelation caused an uproar among snack enthusiasts, leading to protests with signs that read, "We want real cheese, not cheesy dreams." Despite the chaos, Mini Cheddars managed to bounce back, rebranding themselves with the slogan, "Now with 100% more real cheese," and winning back the hearts and taste buds of their loyal fans. The legend of Mini Cheddar's cheesy escapades lived on, bringing laughter and delicious snacks to all. Story 83. Small-town police departments. Everything is legal if you pay off the right people, from backdoor construction deals to drug manufacturing. Story 84. Do lobbyists count as an industry? If so, I say they are the epitome of corruption in this country. Their purpose is to alter the course of government with money and favors rather than voting power. Story 85. Scrap yards. I have worked at one, but they are all like this. Half of what they receive is stolen. This is well known and accepted. Many of them rig scales and cheat customers. The scrap runners, who are vendors, also cheat their customers. I do not think it is a coincidence that mafia members say they are in waste management. Story 86. The Central Intelligence Agency has a long sordid history of conspiring with criminal and extremist groups to achieve its ends. Many covert projects have involved assassination, kidnapping, torture, drug running, arms dealing, and psychological experiments. Has a long history of orchestrating coups, overthrowing democratically elected leaders, and installing dictators. The Central Intelligence Agency operates in secrecy and despises transparency. It is unaccountable to the people of the United States and our elected leaders. Story 87. Taking into consideration that all over the world, governments have close ties with the top 1% richest families and religious leaders, I believe that these are the most corrupt organizations. Governments, which include politicians, churches, representing religion, big companies consisting of the richest families. Story 88. Politics. Not everyone can build a mega mansion on a $175,000 salary, but most politicians can. Story 89. The United States federal government for obvious reasons. Story 90. The nonprofit industry is basically a tax avoidance strategy for the ultra-wealthy to acquire things they want. Once you reach a certain level of wealth, your personal financial security is largely assured. What else is there really to buy? Sure, you can buy yachts, palaces, and cars, but if you examine where the world's wealthy truly spend their money, it is on philanthropy to elevate their social standing and boost their ego. Before anyone accuses me of being cruel for calling Doctors Without Borders dishonest, let me be clear. There are many completely legitimate nonprofit organizations doing great work for people around the world. However, for every Nature Conservancy and Wikimedia Foundation, there are 3 megachurches, private galleries, and barely disguised commercial entities using the law to avoid taxation. For example, the National Football League is a nonprofit organization. I enjoy football, probably more than most people, but really, we are granting tax-exempt status to the overarching organization of the most successful and profitable sports league on the planet. Story 91. The finance industry adds nothing meaningful and only takes. It manipulates money to extract fees. Story 92. Take a drink every time you see Nestle or People for the ethical treatment of animals in the comment section. Any creative media industry can have its finite corruptions depending on how you look at things. Story 93. The government. Do I really need to elaborate further? Story 94. Residential HVAC. With commercial services, The customer acquisition cost can be recovered through continued business from the same client. With residential services, each customer is a one-time opportunity. Some companies engage in unethical practices such as painting your existing compressor and selling it back as a new replacement, replacing your thermostat faceplate and claiming it is new, pretending to charge refrigerant into your system, or purposely loosening wires so that the natural vibration of the unit will eventually cause a failure, requiring additional repairs. Story 95. Politics, and it is not even close. Every other corrupt industry receives its approval from a government at some level. Story 96. Hello. Is anyone interested in starting a religion where members receive tax benefits? Story 97. Law enforcement. I'm not sure it is even close. When people talk about a few bad apples, they forget that the other officers are complicit. I would wager there is not a week where they do not see another officer break the law, but they do nothing. Even worse, if you are honest and take action, the other officers will turn on you. It is not uncommon for an officer who reports another officer committing a crime to find themselves with no backup. In some cases, it is much worse. Story 98. All three-letter agencies except the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are doing their best to protect us. Story 99. The government, because we give them a large percentage of our money, and we generally have no idea where it goes. Mostly, it ends up in their friends' pockets. A small amount goes back into the economy, but the numbers do not add up. Story 100. Higher education. The highlights include predatory labor practices, price gouging, passing off an increasingly inferior product, sweetheart political deals, untouchable professors, toleration of bigotry, working closely with the student loan industry, and creating a culture of censorship that is spreading into the real world. Story 101. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is much worse than most people realize. There are few real technicians anymore. They are all salesmen in disguise. They will tell you that you need a new unit and it will cost $30,000. In reality, most units can be repaired, and parts are inexpensive. New units installed should not cost more than $10,000 at most. Story 102. According to the comments, basically everything and everywhere. Story 103. The electric company Eversource has a monopoly on electricity in my state. They recently doubled everyone's electric bill. They claim the reason is twofold. First, we have to pay for all the customers who did not pay for their electricity during the pandemic. Second, they struck an exclusive deal with a local nuclear power plant, so they will not use natural gas to bring down the price. Story 104. The United States government spends $800 billion per year on public education, including kindergarten through 12th grade and public colleges. Meanwhile, nearly half of our graduates are functionally illiterate. Story 105. Basically all industries. You can follow almost every dollar you spend, willingly or not, to a few groups of ownership. If you consider that these groups use that money to influence politics through lobbying, which then also commandeers tax dollars, you realize it is all corrupt. Story 106. The gaming industry is prominent. Microtransactions are heavily targeted towards children. It is one thing to sell toys. It is another to encourage addiction to purchasing virtual items that do not add any real value to games. Essentially, it conditions them to accept being exploited by companies throughout their lives. Story 107. The International Federation of Association Football and the International Olympic Committee are world champions of corruption. Most international sporting organizations, such as the International Cricket Council, are also known for corruption. Story 108. Politics. It seems that some politicians receive money or favors to represent the interests of businesses or special interest groups rather than representing the wishes of the people who vote for them. I am not sure how this is not illegal, but maybe the issue is more complex than I imagine. Story 109. The Catholic Church has been accused of committing serious crimes against children for nearly 2,000 years, while receiving funds from governments and charities worldwide. The number of harmed individuals is immeasurable, with hurt people often causing pain to others. This has resulted in centuries of generational trauma on a global scale. Story 110. Defense contractors profit from war, so they advocate for conflict. Story 111. Child support. My uncle was in jail for a few years, and while he was incarcerated, they charged him monthly payments. I watched them deny a review to a disabled Army veteran trying to attend college. Then they took his entire settlement and told him there was nothing he could do about. No agency should be above the law or enjoy any legal immunities for mistakes. Also, when you fall behind on your payments, they suspend your license. So even if you try to pay something, you have essentially lost your job. This is an absolutely terrible agency. Story 112. Any United States government organization with a three-letter abbreviation. Story 113. Nestle is a popular answer every time this question is asked. Story 114. I think an obvious answer is the government. The number of things they tax is ridiculous. Where I live, they started charging for the uplift of the green bin, which is for garden waste. I think it is £40 for 6 months. Most people are just dumping garden waste into fields because it will naturally disintegrate over time. There is no point in paying for it. Even when the council cuts the grass, they just leave the grass trimmings. Story 115. How is the top answer not the Vatican? Past, present, and future. It is the most corrupt organization in perhaps all of recorded history. So much money and death. Story 116. Longshoremen have a leader who acts like a mafia gangster and wrongly believes that the rest of the world will tolerate his behavior. Story 117. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters is known for its most famous leader, Jimmy Hoffa, and his son. Story 118. More than 400 members of the United States Congress are accepting blatant bribes from lobbyists, representing complete and ongoing corruption. Story 119. Investment firms operate like a complex game of money moving between companies, designed to generate profits from investments. Story 120. The United States government tries to take all my money. Story 121. Small town America. Everyone in power embezzles money, not to mention the treatment of any outsiders. But what can you expect? Most people in small towns are not very sharp, so it is easy for the government to steal from them. Story 122. The justice and legal industry is one of the most corrupt sectors and the largest financial burden on taxpayers that rarely receives attention. Story 123. Professional organizations are responsible for dealing with members of their profession who violate ethics. As advocates for their profession, they have an obligation to maintain the public image of their profession. Whether lawyers, police officers, doctors, nurses, dentists, judges, or others, the industry has professional organizations similar to unions. Many of these organizations have attorneys who work for them, and members can rely on these attorneys when disciplined. However, the same organization is responsible for penalizing members for violations. Story 124. The entire Republican Party. Research the origins of the pro-life movement. Story 125. I cannot think of an industry that is not corrupt, and there is nothing you can do because the organizations that are supposed to stop it are also corrupt. Story 126. Fossil fuel. As if we have a solution for climate change, but the fossil fuel industry is preventing action. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.